Shavua Tov, Gute Woch. We have a Pesach related story, but as it happened this year, we had 2 weeks in a row in which Matza Shabbos was in Yom Tov, so it's the first time in 3 weeks I'm catching up with the Baal Shem Tov stories online. Story number 24 in the Shivchei haBaal Shem Tov is called the Matzos and the Meat for Pesach. I heard, says the author of the book, from Rabbeinu Moreinu Rav Gedalia mentioned above. And the previous story mentioned Rav Gedalia of Linetz, who heard the story from the Maggid of Mesrich, who heard it from the Mochiach of Polona, Rabbi Yaakov Yosef of Polona, who is the first source from which the stories of the Shivchei are compiled. Once the Baal Shem Tov didn't have meat or matzos for Pesach. Back in those days, you didn't just go to the store and buy matzah and meat. You had to go to a shochet, or you had to shecht it yourself. You had to basically go to the field and see that they cut the fresh wheat and make sure that it doesn't touch water and doesn't start becoming chametz. So the Baal Shem Tov didn't have. So he prepared his horse and wagon, and he went to the towns near where he lived to offer himself to work as a shochet, and with the money from the shechita, he would acquire, well, I guess it was shech his own meat, but he would be able to also acquire the wheat and make sure it gets ground and is kosher for Pesach wheat. So he told his wife to check who is going to separate for him the wheat and ground the wheat into flour, and to keep the meat in the house, in the place, I guess, where they can keep it especially for Pesach, while I prepare the horse. Well, he, is going to go and take care of these things. And the Baal Shem Tov went to his house of his body, to his house of meditation. Everything the Baal Shem Tov does, he does it with a special connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. His job in this world, his physical job, is connected to Hashem. So he goes to his place of his body, of meditation. And when he had the flour ready and he was going to bring it back home, I guess he had it in the wagon, unprotected. A heavy rain came and wet all the matzah, all the flour, made it not up for use for matzah. Once it's wet, within 18 minutes you have to bake it. So it got wet in the sacks and he couldn't use it. So the wife of the Baal Shem Tov had to notify him what happened. Oh, I guess it happened to her that the kemach, that the flour got wet, so she had to tell him. So the Baal Shem Tov checked his knives for shchita, and he went again to offer shchita in the kfarim, in the towns, so that he would make more money and try to, again, start his Pesach anew. So he was bringing already the kemach, the flour for Yom Tov, and when he was already most of the way to his house, there was a mountain that he had to go up, and then on the other side, I guess he would get to his house. But the horse could not continue pulling the wagon. The Baal Shem Tov tried to get off his wagon and tried to push to help the horse. They were halfway through climbing the mountain, and the horse died. He just was not doing well. So the Baal Shem Tov tried to push it all by himself, but he couldn't. and he did not want to abandon the wagon to go ask for help because he wanted the kemach, the flour, to be under shmira, under guard, under his supervision. So if he abandons it, it's no longer supervised, and if it comes in contact with chametz, we don't know. And he wanted to keep what we call shmira matzah, the guard matzah. It has to be shmura kemach, the flour has to be guarded, so he didn't want to abandon. So there he is in the middle of the road, trying to go up a mountain. The horse dies, he cannot push it, he cannot abandon it, and this is his second try to get flour for matzah. And the Baal Shem Tov was so frustrated that he couldn't get it done that he started crying. And in his cry, all his strength went and he fell asleep. And as he fell asleep, crying, frustrated, in his dream, Eliyahu Hanavi came to him. The prophet Elijah, Eliyahu Hanavi. It was the first time that Eliyahu Hanavi appeared to him in a dream. And he said to him, Nirtza, was accepted. Your tears and your prayers were accepted in heaven. And I am going to send you a non-Jew who will take your wagon and the flour to your house. The Baal Shem Tov woke from his dream, and indeed a non-Jew was passing with his horse and wagon, and immediately offered for help. Tie up your wagon to mine and I'll pull it. And so the Baal Shem Tov did, he tied it, and when he arrived to his house, the Nochri, the non-Jew, turned at him and said, how can I help you, to make up for the fact that your horse died? He felt, compassion for the Baal Shem Tov, and gave him a coin called a sekser. Is a Polish coin from the time that was equivalent of 13 big coins, whatever the big coins were. Gedolim says big coins. So they give him quite a big amount of money in one coin. And then this non-Jew left and came back with a bag containing 4 gold coins. So somehow this non-Jew is emissary from heaven, who not only helps the Baal Shem Tov to get the kemach, the flour, to his house, but also brings him, gives him tzedakah, an extra tzedakah money, for the Baal Shem Tov to be able to do his Yom Tov, his celebration, without the Baal Shem Tov asking. It just comes into his mind that he has to help this man. And also tells him that he should get for himself good clothing to be dressed for the holiday that is coming. So these coins are for you to buy clothing for Yom Tov. The story is sort of long. I want to keep it within a certain amount, so I'm going to continue next week with the second part of the story. Shavua Tov, a gute Woche.